Tansy. It's so good to see you. I
You-
feel like I haven't seen you in a while, but maybe it's only been a week.
yeah, I think it's just been a week, but felt like a long week.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very long.
yeah.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I have a little bit of a cold, so anyone watching or listening, I might sound a little bit coldy, so apologies for that. But yeah, it's going around at the moment. I think changing seasons, that kind of vibe.
Yeah, here too. I know a couple people who are out cold
Mm.
in bed. But yeah, it seems to be going around. Spring,
Mm.
beginning of spring. That
Yes.
that that phase from winter to spring. Well, it's good to see you and thanks for being here.
You too. I'm happy to be here. Um, and so today we wanted to talk about something that's been going on in the news. We wanted to kind of bring our opinions, talk a little bit around it, because it feels relevant, and we want to do a little bit more about um, current things that are happening. So I think that's why we wanted to talk about this. So, what has been going on at the moment is that Gary Gensler from the SEC, which is the securities, um, what is it?
Exchange Commission? Yes, U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission has a three-part mission: protect investors, maintain fair, orderly, and efficient markets, facilitate capital formation. Now we know.
Now we know.
And
Perfect. Um, and
Gary
then,
Gensler is the head of that organization currently.
and he has a little bit of a vendetta against cryptocurrencies. Um, Mostly because he is trying to regulate. The SEC want to get their hands around cryptocurrency and blockchain technology and just like pull it in so that they can also start to do some regulation. But because of the nature of cryptocurrencies, it's been a little bit difficult to define them. So although Bitcoin has sort of been seen as a commodity, which is different from a security in the sense that a commodity is more of a product. It's something like gold or something more like a physical property that can be exchanged or traded, whereas a security is more like an investment in an organization where you get yield for being part of that organization, so a little bit like a stock or a share. So the SEC rule over like stocks and shares basically, and that kind of those are securities. And with cryptocurrencies, it's been very difficult to define them. And other than Bitcoin, the others are sort of floating about in this. I was going to say ether, but that would be confusing. They are floating around in this undefined space, and for a long time there has been this threat of regulation, but no one has been quite sure of how that will look. And this week, there has been some movement by the SEC, and they've decided to basically regulate stable coins, which are a type of cryptocurrency, and staking. And what we're going to talk about today is just the issues around that word, staking, because there are cryptocurrencies that offer staking, but there's also platforms that offer staking or yield. So we want to kind of dig into that and to show why it's creating some controversy and how it's a little bit difficult. Um, and also around the stable coins and kind of why they're being targeted and what that means for the space overall. So yeah, do you have preference on which angle we start, or do you want to contribute anything to the beginning bit?
Um, I think I don't what I think we should start with staking.
Okay, great.
And partly just because it's sort of on the tip of my head or
Mm.
tip of my tongue on top of my head. Because I was trying to unpack sort of like for myself what is staking. And and falling down that rabbit hole, discovering that there's not just one kind of staking. And, the way the media has been sharing information about the current activities by the SEC, by Gary Gensler regarding staking, it just paints it as just sort of a all-encompassing kind of concept. And also, I think the SEC itself is sort of presenting it that way. But there's actually all different ways of kinds of staking, or not that many. I think there's maybe 2 or 3 different types of staking. And so I just thought it was really, really important, partly because you have sort of at the forefront in the media, you have Kraken, who just got fined because of their staking, and you have Coinbase, and they haven't been fined, and they're getting, though, agitated and concerned regarding any further regulation regarding staking, or any regulation at all. No regulation has been put in place. It's just the SEC decided to fine Kraken, and Kraken didn't want to, for whatever reason, push against and fight and go into the court system, the US court system, to try to navigate it. So they paid the fine and had to stop the ability of staking, the type of staking they're doing in the United States.
And if I just explain a little bit to the audience, if you don't know Kraken and Coinbase, they are both crypto exchanges. So they both sit at the point of where people can kind of bring in money from the outside, so from a bank into the space, and you can either hold coins there, or you can trade with them, and you can buy and sell between different cryptocurrencies. And they both offer a sort of a staking capability. And maybe shall I explain the sort of different types? So, and this is where, so Coinbase is one of those organizations, and both actually of these institutions are really heavily regulated. Like, they are cryptocurrency firms that have really like stepped up to try to be as regulated as possible. And so it's a little bit harsh because this SEC judgment has really come after a year of huge collapses, basically from Celsius, Three Arrows, FTX, and all of them were very unregulated. And yet now the regulated organizations themselves are getting lumped with more and more kind of persecution and structures. So the difference really, so they both offer staking products, but the difference between the two is that Kraken, like Celsius before, offers products that are called like staking or yield farming, which is basically when you can, a customer can invest in or stake their coins, any coin that they're offered to stake. So it could be Ethereum, it may be Bitcoin, it could be a stable coin, it could be one of many different cryptocurrencies, and they kind of give it to the platform itself. And the platform takes those, invests them sort of elsewhere, and gives back a yield. So it pays basically an interest for you locking up your coins with them. So in that sense, the organization themselves, the platform themselves, has kind of control over your coins, and then they give you a yield for kind of taking that control. And there's a lot of different platforms that do that. Crypto.com does it too. But with, for example, with Celsius, that those funds were being misused, and that wasn't seen. And so that led to a complete collapse of Celsius, another platform, and everybody lost their funds. And so there was because there's no regulation about those people who are taking funds, making sure that they are doing good by their customers. So Kraken offers that kind of system, although they show and they say, we can prove that we are doing this legitimately. We're not misusing customer funds. The SEC have sort of stepped in and said, it doesn't matter. You're taking customer funds. You're not being clear enough about the fact that, you are offering this service, and, actually to offer this service in a normal investment firm that's not crypto related, you would be required to be regulated by us. So we are regulating you. And so that's sort of why Kraken has been targeted, and they have agreed, like you said, to pay a $30 million fine. Coinbase does something slightly different, which is why Coinbase is pushing back. And this explains why a lot of different people in the crypto space are pushing back, because staking has a different role as well. So when we're talking about staking in terms of yield farming, it's like it's not really staking. It's more you are kind of securing your assets and kind of giving them to the platform, and they invest them and they give you a profit, or they give you yield. So it's more yield farming, although the SEC has called it all staking. And the reason it's confusing is because what Coinbase give is basically a platform for blockchains, which have cryptocurrencies linked to them. They're like a cryptocurrency blockchain. And those cryptocurrency blockchains can offer their own staking in order to validate their system. In order to validate that blockchain, they have a staking protocol, which is completely different than the kind of yield farming. And for example, Ethereum moved from proof of work to proof of stake. So these are different protocols. So Bitcoin is on the proof of work, which means that you have to kind of churn through a lot of computational effort in order to find essentially a number, in order to validate the Bitcoin blockchain, in order to add a block to that blockchain, in order to kind of process transactions. Ethereum has moved to a proof of stake protocol, which a lot of other blockchains do as well, which means that essentially people can purchase Ethereum and stake it in the protocol itself. So they lock it up. And the more people that lock up their Ethereum, that creates the security. And if you have enough locked up, you can become like a verifier or a validator of that network, and to help validate and secure the transactions and add the blocks. So the staking is part and is fundamental to the running of that blockchain. Like the entire thing runs on people staking those coins and validating the network. And what Coinbase offer is they offer the ability to stake in these protocols. So they are just a hosting platform basically, and they say we offer the doorway to staking in Ethereum. We offer the doorway to staking in whatever other cryptocurrencies. So they are saying we don't manage customers' money in terms of, we don't give the yield. The blockchain themselves do that, and they are not securities, because it's a completely different organization. And like we said, cryptocurrencies have kind of fallen outside of the regulatory framework. And the issue is that when Gary Gensler says all staking, everyone's kind of up in arms, because it's like, that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to do it that way. And that's why Coinbase have said, we are not paying you any money and we will fight you, because we are not doing what you are accusing us of doing, which is basically yield farming. And that's what the SEC is trying to actually clamp down on.
Yeah. And it's really a scary situation, because besides Bitcoin and a couple other coins, all these crypto coins are proof of stake. They're based on that concept of proof of stake. So when you start pushing back and finding this concept of staking, you're really pushing against sort of the underlying method of how most of crypto works. Yeah. And so, everybody, Twitter is all abuzz with this information this week. And, and it's interesting though, a lot of people are saying, this is, what is it? The cloud with the silver lining kind of thing, where they're saying this is actually going to motivate a lot of people to move off of centralized staking platforms like Coinbase and go directly into DeFi. and do it directly with those coins, like with Cosmos, with Ethereum, stake it themselves and take full responsibility, and not having that middleman like Coinbase. So in one sense, you know, is this a good thing for the whole sort of underlying decentralized finance of crypto? But then in another sense, you know, people who are just beginning and who don't want to go down that DeFi rabbit hole and want to have that opportunity to be part of proof of stake. You know, Coinbase, you know, these middlemen, these what are we calling them? What kind of organization? A
Custody
yeah, that wasn't
wallet.
quite the word, but that works.
Oh,
So these crypto exchanges allow sort of the general retail investor to get into DeFi, into DeFi, but without going the DeFi route. So it's very confusing. It can be very scary, but again, like, is it an opportunity for people to embrace even further this idea of decentralized finance?
Yeah.
Um,
But in a
have
way,
you heard, I mean, is crypto.com, have you heard anything regarding crypto.com and what they're...
yeah, no, I haven't heard, because they, you know, they do offer it too. They have a whole sort of
Yeah,
staking. They call it staking too, but it's yield.
it's
So
yield. Okay, I wasn't
yeah,
sure
it's
about
yield.
that.
Yeah, because it's the same, because you're not, because to actually go into the protocol and and stake, for example, with Ethereum, it's a different process to just moving coins where you can generate interest on that. More that, sorry, when you're staking, you do sort of enter staking pools with that protocol. Whereas with something like crypto.com or Kraken, you sort of allocate the amount of coins you have. You kind of say yes, you know, stake like half of it, and then they just generate yield for you, and that just comes back into your wallet. And there's quite a lot of wallets that do that, that offer that kind of yield system. And it is confusing because they call it staking, but it's different from the staking when you're going directly into one of the protocols, like one of the blockchains, like Ethereum. And you know, I think that is really what the SEC is targeting. They're trying to target the overall yield part rather than the blockchains themselves, because to do that, if they start attacking Ethereum, which is like one of the biggest coins in the space, and so much is built on Ethereum, like so many NFTs and obviously a lot of the stable coins. And so, you know, you'd be really attacking the kind of the heart of this crypto space. Obviously, Bitcoin is immune to it all, as usual, because it doesn't work on proof of stake. So yeah, it's an interesting kind of move, and I think it's really about the SEC sort of flexing its muscles and saying, like, we need to start kind of regulating and getting control over this. But one thing a lot of people say is that if you're regulating, it's only in America. So a lot of people then get pushed to other countries. And that's what happened with, you know, FTX, for example. Like, they were kind of registered in Barbados. So, and that's how they got away with not being regulated, because they weren't actually registered in the UK, in the US. And so you're encouraging organizations to move abroad, and that is then less regulated, but you're also potentially offering, you know, kind of separating the US customers as well from everyone else, and kind of disenfranchising people.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, you know, some in the crypto community are saying, like, what Gary Gensler is trying to achieve is specifically with this this fine against Kraken, is that with the yield farming, you don't, the yield investing, the yield staking, you don't necessarily know where your money is going, you know, where your crypto is going. What are they doing with it? You know, and so, I mean, one of the big sort of rules in the US. I think it was set up in the 1930s or something, where when people invest their money into your organization, you have to let them know where is their money going, and you have to disclose it. And that's sort of the big thing. The issue with Kraken is they weren't disclosing it.
Mm.
Now, the other side is that Kraken wasn't able to disclose it because the type of disclosing documents that are available, because they're based in the old fiat system, they couldn't fill out the form. It was like apples and oranges. You know, what Kraken offered was this orange, and they were only offered an apple, so they couldn't share properly what they were offering in this yield staking. And as you mentioned, I mean, they did do a lot of work, a lot of time, energy, money in trying to be regulated properly, you know. So people are again mentioning that, you know, if they could have, they would have, but that opportunity wasn't there for them. So that's another interesting aspect. And it's just disappointing, you know, that the SEC is doing these very kind of aggressive forward moves on crypto, but then they don't seem to have the full information, or they're not sharing it with people. Like the information they're giving to the media or even on the government's websites. You know, again, this idea of staking there's different definitions of it. There's different ways of staking, and they don't even address that. It's like, are they that ignorant that they're not knowledgeable about this? Do they not care? Do they want to create the confusion to sort of instigate some fear in the crypto community? So the whole thing is just, it's another crypto soap opera.
Yeah. And yeah, it's so frustrating because, you know, for example, with FTX, with Sam Bankman-Fried, you know, he was kind of chummy with the SEC in many ways. You know, he kind of walked the
Him and
corridors
Gary
with
were
them.
like this.
Right, exactly. And he was trying to, you know, offer the kind of regulatory solutions that might be useful for the, you know, the crypto space. And it's like, so you have places like Coinbase and Kraken that have been in the space for a very long time, are highly regulated, have huge teams about them. You know, they invest a lot of time and money in becoming, you know, recognized as being secure spaces to navigate the crypto space. And yet, you know, the SEC doesn't go to them to go, how can we work this out? How can we find, you know, an understanding here? How can this work? How do we change the rules so that we can accommodate both needs? Instead, they go to someone like Sam Bankman-Fried, who is brand new pretty much in this space, who, you know, obviously came from a background where he had influential parents who probably put him in that position where he could be kind of chummy with Gary Gensler. But it's like, he's one of the most corrupt people in the space, Sam. And so it's just so frustrating, even then, for that, you know, for Gary Gensler to not admit that he made a mistake by not inviting everyone to this roundtable, that he kind of chose one direction and then it basically didn't have any kind of influence over how FTX was run and how it's absolutely corrupt. And now instigating these kind of high, you know, regulatory sort of seizures where they're like, right, you know, you have to accommodate what we're saying, without bringing everyone in, without saying, come in, let's talk about this, what works. And what they should have been doing with Kraken is to say this, you know, we are going to instigate, we believe that what you're doing is this, and it falls under SEC. And, you know, we admit that maybe we didn't have the right format of forms or whatever to accommodate, but now we do. So, you know, we give you a grace period. It's time to move over. Instead, they just clamp down, crack down, get the fines, attack everyone. And it's like, it's just, what that creates is this attacking kind of vector where it's not about working in unity. It's about creating tension. And And it feels like there's a little bit of ego in that. Like I can't understand it,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I mean, it is again another line to sing hello.
Hi.
It's another perfect example of this old, old boys club top-down structure.
Mm,
Instead of this more collaborative, like, let's figure this out together. Let's collaborate.
yeah.
I don't understand why that concept of collaboration is such a not allowed in the old boys club or something. It's such an odd thing. I
Yeah.
mean, to me, it makes complete sense. It seems much more efficient
Mm,
in the long term. And it creates, I think, win-win-win scenarios.
yeah.
Um, what they're doing at the SEC is just, I think it's going to bite them back.
Mm,
In some way, it might not be tomorrow, but yeah,
mm.
very frustrating, you know.
It is frustrating. And it just feels like you're right. Like it feels like the same old,
Yeah.
and
It's not 21st century,
yeah, yeah. And it's
so
like,
old.
yeah. And these are organizations, these are
Tragedy.
businesses that are contributing to the economy. They are doing, they are operating um in every way else, like a regulated way. And so it's like, why, what is this? Like, if you don't like crypto, okay, but it exists. So
Mhm.
converse with it, work it out, find equal ground, find the middle ground, rather than having this. It's funny because in crypto we talk about these centralized organizations. It's like take the power back. But now we've kind of got this we've got the centralized organizations like Kraken and Coinbase. And then you've got this overarching kind of, I just sort of see them with a kind of cigar in their mouth. Just they're like even the higher dogs that are even stamping on the centralized organizations. And it's just so, yeah, like archaic. It just,
Yes,
oh,
archaic.
yeah. Um, and it's not just staking that
What
they are
else,
attacking.
Tansy?
Well, they're also attacking stable coins, which
Mhm.
is in many ways more nefarious or more damaging because staking, not that many people do, not that many people are part of this kind of yield staking. It does offer opportunities to, make money off your crypto. But some people are generally just a little bit more skeptical of doing those sorts of things. And so they prefer to stay away and don't do that. But stable coins, which are a type of cryptocurrency that are usually pegged to a commodity and usually the dollar, which means that they hold their value, they are stable. So, in all intents and purposes, they kind of act like a dollar in the space because they hold the same monetary value. But the difference is they can obviously they are programmable and they can kind of operate across the entire kind of crypto network. So most of
Mhm.
them are built on Ethereum, on the Ethereum blockchain, but they are, people use them in all sorts of different wallets and hold them there. And the most sort of famous ones are USDC and USDT. And there's one called BUSD, which is Binance, which is another exchange which has its own stablecoin. And the reason why stablecoins are so popular is that when you are doing well with a particular cryptocurrency, so say you have Bitcoin and you bought Bitcoin at $5,000 and it moves up to $50,000, you want to take your profit. So, or you want to sell it. So say you have one Bitcoin that you want to sell for profit. If you bought it at $5,000 and it's now $50,000, you've made $49,000. So you might want to sell that Bitcoin. Now, instead of selling it into dollars, like fiat money, which costs a lot, there's like a tax around that. And you have to use certain centralized exchanges, such as Coinbase or Kraken. Instead, there is like this intermediary, which is a stable coin, and you can just switch it. It's another cryptocurrency. So you can just switch your Bitcoin into that, and you've captured the 49,000, but it was a much cheaper exchange, and you're still holding it within the crypto space. And you can send that stable coin, you can send that USDC to other people in the space. So I could send it to you, I could send it to another one of my wallets, I could send it anywhere. If it's fiat, if it's US dollars, you could only hold it in the wallet that allows that. And you cannot send at the moment USD, so fiat dollars. You can't send that across the space. You can only send stable coins. So if I wanted to pay you, Anja, $50, I would send you USDC or USDT. I'm not going to send you $50 in dollars because I can't do that through my crypto wallets. So it is one of the most used part of the crypto space is stable coins. People sending it, paying for things. It's like, it's huge, basically. And the SEC are targeting it.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to like put in there that, you know, and the benefit of this is the time, the transfer time and the transfer fees. So when you're sending these stable coins to each other via these crypto wallets, it happens within seconds to minutes. And the fee is minimal. You try to do that with US dollars on a bank, it takes days. And it's like at least $50 to transfer it across the world, wherever you're sending it to. So it makes no sense, even like when you start getting into the crypto world and you see this opportunity for fast and cheap exchange opportunity, why use the banking system in US dollars? So I just wanted to highlight why, you know, it's so useful to send USDC and USDT around.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. And you can think about countries that can't often, you know, easily send money between each other, and USDC is an easy way to do that. And you know, people, Bitcoiners would say just have Bitcoin, but obviously because it's such a fluctuating price, if you are a very small scale kind of farmer or, you know, employee in some way and you're not making very much money and you need to send $15, well, one day you might wake up and you have $15 in Bitcoin, and the next day it might be $10 of Bitcoin or $5 of Bitcoin. And so you can't, you know, the value is depleting. So by having stable coins, you're giving access to everybody to kind of secure the value to keep it steady. So it's really important. And the SEC are targeting stablecoins. And they've started with Binance's stablecoin, which is BUSD, Binance US dollar. And that is created by a company called Paxos. And they have been told to cease and desist. So they've been told to stop generating any more of this BUSD, which they have done, but they are planning to push back, saying stablecoins are not a security because nobody is investing in the company itself. No one is investing in Paxos or even Binance. If they're using BUSD, they are the actual cryptocurrency. They are using that and they are sending it around. They don't get yield for that. They don't get money for it. So it would be like having a share that you never made any money on, but you just sent it around the world, which that's the problem. It doesn't actually exist. There is nothing similar in the current system. And so that's why it hasn't been regulated up until now. And in a way, you know, it's kind of more like a commodity. But with Bitcoin, we don't know who created it. And so it's more like gold, you know, it's just accessible by anyone. Whereas with stablecoins, they are issued by a company.
Yeah.
So, you know, there is that problem, but they could just say you need to make sure that there is an equal balance. So you are holding an equal amount of US dollar for the amount of USD or like the amount of stablecoin that you're issuing. So there is never discrepancy between how much you are producing and how much you actually have it backed by, because that's the problem is like if you have an issuer, they could just produce lots of it and you're kind of interrupting even you could interrupt even the US dollar system, right? So if you generated loads of stable coins, people can swap that stable coin. They can actually exchange that into dollars. So if you created like $1 billion worth of stable coins and then everybody changed that into dollars, you've just kind of unwittingly created a huge kind of inflationary thing to the US economy. So I understand why they wouldn't want you just to be able to create a stable coin out of thin air. But a lot of the stable coins are, having assets like or of Bitcoin or of dollars as a way to back their stable coin, which makes sense. And so that's where there's tension, is like what the SEC is wanting to do is protect consumers, protect the nation. But what they're ultimately doing is kind of it's like using a battering ram instead of something a little bit more delicate, and actually creating maybe new regulations to help to ease that issue, that of having it backed, and not people overproducing. And this is a direct response to Luna, which was another stable coin which they had, which was UST, which collapsed, and but it had no backing in reality. So it's a very different example.
I haven't done much research on that particular issue. So was that their specific the reason why they requested them to cease and desist producing BUSD, because they couldn't verify they had enough backing?
So actually with Paxos, they said that they had not given enough, they had not given consumers, so those who are purchasing BUSD, they had not stated that it was a security asset, and hadn't basically done the necessary informing before people were purchasing BUSD. So it's more around at the moment, it's more around that piece of just that they haven't lived up to the kind of the necessary regulations that would be involved in distributing a security.
And what about then, I mean, were they an easier target versus USDC and USDT, or are USDC and USDT next? Perhaps. What's your take on?
Well, USDT has been in trouble for many years around the concept of the backing. So although right now with BUSD, it's more around the information provided to consumers, the piece around the USDT, which is another stablecoin, was around the fact that it wasn't believed that they had enough backing, that they had enough behind what they were producing. So they got taken to court. And in the interim, I believe they have made sure they have enough backing. So currently they do have enough, USDT do have enough behind all of their coins, if it's Bitcoin or US dollars. So they have huge reserves. And I do believe USDC as well has 1-to-1. So they haven't yet been attacked, because actually for now they are backed, although they aren't also giving the information. But I think Paxos was an easier target because they aren't giving the information, and there isn't a kind of disclosure that they are that they have 1-to-1. And actually there is suggestion that there has been discrepancies at points, and so that is kind of why they've been targeted first. But there is speculation that all of them could be targeted, or that basically the kind of the US sort of claims one of them, like maybe USDC or USDT, as their kind of as their own sort of central bank digital currency in a way, because it's all pegged to the dollar, right? So we're now using dollars all over the world, the dollar equivalent.
Which is a benefit to the US dollar.
Right.
Yeah.
And if they need to have 1-to-1, they have to keep accumulating US dollars in order to issue more stable coins, which basically makes the US dollar important forever. So, I think they're doing whatever they're doing tactically.
One of the interesting things I heard again on Twitter, my favorite source of various soap opera information on crypto, is, one of the things that could result from this is that stable coins start to be created that are not based on the dollar. So they're based on, let's say, the euro or the yen or, whatever. And so that the US dollar would lose a lot of something, liquidity. I don't know what the term is. But it seems like it would be a big loss for the US in general if all these stable coins move from having the dollar, the sort of the world currency, and move it towards a new world currency or a new, stronger currency. But it's an interesting thought that these stable coins move away from the US dollar.
Well, a lot of people are hoping that it would be Bitcoin that has its own stablecoin, and it's backed on Bitcoin. So, so we have a stable coin that is not associated, and maybe it could start by being, I don't know how you kind of conceptualize what that would, what the price is, but that would be able to be held, and it's the Bitcoin that backs it. So that's what a lot of people would like. Yeah, because it's global as well, and you're not like relating it to any country. And I think that's kind of the problem with USDC or USDT is that, they're all pegged to the dollar. And although that makes it easy, obviously, when you're paying for things and exchanging money, it's like it keeps the US as this dominant force, even in the space. Yeah. And, I think we want to step away from this, the kind of the current system where they hold the reins to more global system where it's an equalizer. And that's the thing with all of these different CBDCs, all the different central bank digital currencies for each country. Again, it's all competition. It's all like, well, can you use mine? Can I use yours? And it gives a certain amount of, autonomy to each country, a certain amount of sovereignty to each country, but that's fine. You can keep your own fiat currencies if you want to, but we also should be allowed to have a global currency that we can share and partake in, and that would kind of replace the dollar as the global reserve currency, and would be acceptable all over the world. And it seems more likely that that would be based on Bitcoin. And that means that, like, at the moment, with the US dollar being the global reserve currencies, they have a lot of power. And they can print a lot of dollars before it actually impacts them inflationary wise, because it's spreading across the world. And obviously China is trying to compete by forcing in their digital yuan. And obviously when we're thinking about digital currencies, is that these are programmable currencies, and we don't know what program, like what exists within the currency. So if you have it in your wallet, could it just disappear? Could it deplete? Could it target something on your computer? Who knows? And so I think that realistically, I don't think many countries in the West particularly are going to want to adopt the digital yuan, like China's digital currency, as everybody's digital currency, although they want it to be. So I think, stable coins are leading the way in being an equalizer of global currency. And so Bitcoin is that, but it's fluctuating. So this is like kind of the great equalizer with stable coins. And I think that targeting that is attacking America itself, because then you're allowing something like, say, the digital one to like step up, or maybe to even kind of get into the space and say, okay, well, everything needs to be based on China's kind of currency and coin or valuation, and then they kind of take over on that. So everything we know is sort of priced globally in a kind of China value.
China
way. So I just think it's one of those ones of like the SEC in the US again kind of flexing their muscles and not really helping not really understanding the narrative, or if they had come in a long time ago, right at the beginning, and said we need to do something about this, they could have maybe shut it down, they could have maybe suppressed it, they could have changed it, they could have regulated it, they could have done anything. But they've let it go for so long to get so big. They know stablecoins have existed for years, and it's huge business. It's huge. And so now to kind of come in and be like, oh, we're going to start doing this kind of regulation. It's like, I mean, it's just too late. And like, you actually have to set like, legitimate bounds, which is would be around the having the one-to-one, but getting them to say it's a security, and getting them to say you have to, they have to explain to every single customer certain principles and they have to pay. And it's like, it's not a security. So just stop wasting your time, protect what needs to be protected, and make sure that the money is backed one-to-one with something that you recognize as being legitimate. If that's Bitcoin, if that's gold, if that's dollar. That was the problem with Luna, is they had a Luna stablecoin pairing. So there was no backing in anything kind of recognized as being legitimate. So make sure that all the stablecoins have to be backed by something legitimate, and you've solved your problem. Move on.
Really, I mean, I've become more and more less trusting of these regulations of the US government in general. I mean, specifically in regards to crypto, because they had such an opportunity when they were having these discussions with the whole FTX, and there was an opportunity, although maybe there wasn't an opportunity because it was part of a plan to, there's it. But it seemed like at that point there were more opportunities to start making some moves to get into, to have more collaboration and communication with the crypto world. Because again, I saw besides Sam Bankman-Fried, there were others and getting involved. And that whole thing, that sort of potential collaborative system just got pulled down by the collapse of FTX. And now instead they're just pushing, like, what did you say, they're pushing hard with a mallet, or what you used, some kind of
battering ram, probably.
battering. Yeah, so anyways, I mean, it seems like 2023 is where we really is going to be a big change somehow, and how that affects crypto in general, specific entities in crypto. I mean, it's going to be another crazy year, I think.
Yeah.
Interesting year.
Yeah, I mean, one good thing if you're a Bitcoiner is that if you're not going to stake, if staking is getting persecuted, then you obviously have stayed away anyway from any staking blockchains, but also any staking or yield giving protocols on a exchange site. And if you're targeting stable coins, then everybody's just going to move all of their money into Bitcoin. So people aren't going to, I think what the SEC kind of want, and I think they're probably working with banks, is they want people to stop bringing money from the fiat system into the cryptocurrency system, and they're not bringing it back. Like, people are not bringing back their money, and they're sitting it in stable coins in the cryptocurrency system. And so you think, well, why wouldn't you bring it back into the general fiat system, because it's where you'd want to spend money? And people are like, nope, now that I've got it in crypto, like, you're not having it bank. And I think that's kind of part of the learning, right? Like, when you start entering the crypto space, you want sovereignty and you want like kind of a control. And although, the stable coins have issuers, there's still a sort of a sense that you're not going through the bankers. And that kind of gives a kind of glee in some way of just you're in control. But if, push comes to shove, people are not bringing it back into fiat. So if that's what they think is going to happen, I think they're wrong. And I think I'm not either. And I think people will just buy Bitcoin. And so it could send up the price of Bitcoin a lot, because people put it all into Bitcoin, and then Bitcoin creates, there is a Bitcoin backed stablecoin, and goodbye SEC, because they've already said Bitcoin's a commodity, pretty much, like it's been justified as a commodity. So, Bitcoin it always seems to be the solution.
It does. I know. Even, I guess as time goes on, I'm getting more and more
bullish,
connected to Bitcoin. Oh, bullish. No, bullish. Yeah, always bullish. Long-term bullish. but I see more and more as I'm in the space more. I mean, I'm still dabbling in other cryptos. But you know, the more I'm in the space, the more I see the real, just beautiful, the beauty and brilliance of Bitcoin.
Mm.
You know, as yeah.
It's a good way to
Oh,
end.
yeah.
It feels good.
That was fun.
That was fun. Yeah. So
Beating up on the US government.
yeah.
It gets some of my frustration out.
I totally agree. Yeah, it feels good. And also because I'm not in the US, I kind of feel a bit like, you know, it's not affecting me yet. So it feels good to
Yeah.
kind of be able to look on and be like, "Ooh, what's going on over there?"
A lot.
Yeah. But it's fun to kind of delve into these topics of what's going
Yeah.
on at the moment. And, we're not experts. We just have our own opinions and we're just giving the things that, giving our explanations of what's going on. But I feel like that it feels nice to be able to do that. And I think we will take more topics that are relevant and dive into them that are like relevant for the times. So if you
Yeah.
enjoyed this, then please do like, subscribe, press the bell button and all, so that you can, keep listening to our videos and you're watching them and follow us.
Yeah. And share with friends.
Yeah.
Share our conversation with friends who are like right on the edge of crypto. What's that about? That's, the perfect audience for our videos, I think.
Yeah.
Who want to learn, who might not be quite ready, but want to get into the conversation where it's not all this technical things, but where we're really talking about, serious topics, but in a fun, feminine way.
We hope.
We think, well, we're having fun.
Yeah,
We hope
yeah.
you guys are having fun too.
Yeah, we're having the fun. Yes, exactly. And if anybody has any ideas for topics that they want us to cover, if you're thinking, oh, we really want Tansy and Anja to talk about this, then do email us with your suggestions and we will happily share our knowledge and our thoughts about it. So yeah, we'd love to hear from you.
Linus is our newest listener.
Alrighty. So I shall see you next week.
Yes, next week. Have a great week, and we'll see what's happening, during the week with crypto, all the excitement, and it'll be fun to chat about it.
Yeah, definitely. Looking forward to it. Alrighty.
Bye.
Bye.
Ciao.